everyone. Welcome to the New Earth Economics Podcast. My name is Jacqueline, your host. And today we're going to be talking about high net worth money management. More specifically, one of the most important tip for high net worth individuals to manage their money. And even if you're not someone, you don't currently consider yourself high worth, I think it's really important to still listen to this, especially if you are someone that is currently manifesting or working towards, or both, energetically setting the blueprint for a different financial reality. It's going to be super important for you to listen to this as well. So it's not just, these conversations about money aren't just about how much money you're currently making. It's really about where you see yourself going. So, because if you see yourself going towards someone that does make a lot of money, someone who owns a business that makes a lot of money, whatever that number is for you, ultimately you need to be preparing for it, or you need to have some sort of plan for that money to show up. You don't have to, I guess. You actually don't have to have any plan at all. It can come in an overnight windfall to you, right? But it's going to help for you to get money management skills acquired and really have a plan for what's actually going to, like, what you're actually bringing into your life, rather than the feeling of you'll figure it out when it happens. Why don't you start planning and preparing for it now, so that way when it does happen, it's so much more of an easier transition for you. I've experienced this in my own personal life, receiving large amounts of money in a short amount of time, having my financial reality pretty much completely turned around overnight, going from having, not very much money to a lot of money in a relatively short amount of time. Go back and listen to previous episodes if you want to know more about that. But I can speak from experience when I say that money that wasn't prepared for is often not going to be as sustainable as money that was planned for, and money that was already accounted for, already had a place to go. And I think that it is so amazing that so many people are opening themselves up to the feminine and masculine energies around money or around owning a business, and really truly breaking these paradigms around the success that is available for us, right? We see so many of us online are just surrounded by so many amazing, successful people that have built businesses online and have a level of financial success that was previously inconceivable, right? If you're working a 9-to-5, earning money in this capacity, or if you work at a corporation, your career is in a corporation, earning money at this capacity and in so fluidly and so risky is like unconceivable, right? It's something that is a big jump for you to go to. And so that is so amazing. Like, there's so many benefits to that. But a gap that I do see that I want to cover here today is the idea that you don't need the masculine money management, that you can just purely go with the flow with everything and let your soul guide you and guide you into alignment. All of this is true, but all of it becomes so much more financially secure and stable when we do bring in the reality of the 3D environment and bring in the other energy, the masculine energy, into money, the management, the planning, the preparing. It really rounds everything out, right? So if you're someone who you have been able to magnetize a lot of money from what you would consider a feminine energy, or, being in your feminine energy, running a feminine energy-based business, then I think you'll also benefit from listening to this as well, because you are like rounding out the equation. The masculine wants us to come back. The feminine wants to come back to the masculine. We want to have this full circle moment. It's not about being unbalanced in one or the other. It's about having harmony between both of these energies. So if you've magnetized large amounts of money on one end, but you feel like your management, or like what you're actually doing with it, or like how you're spending it, how you're investing it, how you're making more, could use some work, and that's where the bottleneck is in your wealth picture and where you're looking to go, is all about like how you're spending and managing it, well, this is the perfect time for you to pay attention to these energies and really start to bring in this concept of like high net worth money management, because it really truly can still feel so soul aligned. It can still feel extremely abundant. And the best part about having these kind of conversations, or like just starting to learn more about something that, you know, you might not necessarily be a pro at, is that you don't have to take any one single system and say, this is my money system. You don't even need to have hard and fast rules about what you do with your money, right? An example of this is like, I've worked with clients in the past that they dedicate like a certain percentage to certain things, like a savings account. You know, they divvy up the money at the end of the month and have a very structured system around money. But that's something like that isn't even required. And it doesn't have to, even if you do that for a couple months, you are the boss. You are the manager of this money. And so you get to change shit up whenever you want. You get to do whatever you want. So to also take the pressure off of yourself that if you are starting to learn more about money management, that you need to have like this one system that's going to solve everything. It's probably not, you know, it probably won't look like that for you. It'll probably look like doing a bunch of little things that all add up over time. And really learning to trust yourself and really learning to, just like have this trust in yourself that you know what you're doing with the money, right? And this is also easier for us to achieve if we don't have like, you know, so many prior experiences of maybe making bad money decisions or making money investments that didn't end up being advantageous to us, et cetera, et cetera. But if we have those experiences in our past, the great thing is that we get to start with a clean, energetic slate every single day. And we don't need to feel like we constantly need to be like, you know, paying for our past decisions by like this mental anguish, like we punish ourselves for our past decisions, when all that's really doing is fucking up the present and the future timelines. It's not affecting the past at all. So the best thing that you can do if you have that kind of maybe emotional baggage around past financial decisions that you've made is, in my opinion, stop obsessing so much about healing it. And just recognize that it's the past. If you're still physically paying for it in the present, you know, that's a little bit more difficult to achieve. But once the money is cleared up and once the transactions are cleared up, and what I mean by that is like, let's say you owe money to something from 2014 or something like that, and you're still paying on it or whatever it is. Maybe that's your student loans or whatever the situation is, right? And you're still paying on it. Well, once the transactions are cleared up, then you need to like move on, right? Move on into the field of potential where things can actually change and where your financial picture really can change relatively quickly. So it's important to manage your money as if you are already a high net worth individual, if that's what you're planning and preparing for. Don't ask for a certain amount of money that seems inconceivable to you or seems like so drastic from your current financial reality. Don't ask for quantum leaps if you're not prepared to receive them, right? Because otherwise that's going to be such a hard lesson to learn in like essentially being careful for what you ask for, right? The learning and the lessons that will come attached to that money will be so much more drastic than they need to be if you thought of, you know, all of this stuff beforehand, basically. So the number one most important tip, you're like, Jacqueline, let's get to the fucking point here, right? Just kidding. You're not saying that because this is all super valuable. The most important tip for high net worth money management is to not invest in anything that you can't explain yourself. You need to be able to, let me phrase this a different way. It does not have to be complicated. If you can't explain what you're investing into and understanding and being able to verbally comprehend the investment that you're making, the risks involved, and the potential return on your investment, you should not be putting money towards something. That is going to be such a valuable rule for when you do have a lot of money and you're going to be bombarded with people that have investment opportunities for you, right? Like, that's just what's probably going to happen. So, knowing it doesn't have to be complicated. And just because something sounds complex and sounds sophisticated and complicated doesn't mean that it's actually beneficial. I see this all the time on the back end of entrepreneurship. So, working with financial professionals, working with, financial planners, accountants, CPAs, just being around a lot of those people, or networking, being connected on the internet with a lot of those people. The number one thing I notice is that so many people try to make their job sound so much more complicated than it actually is. They're trying to overcomplicate the process, so that you as the consumer don't understand what's going on. And somehow that's beneficial for them because that affirms your need to hire the financial professional. And if you're not a financial professional that is like doing this to your clients, then like, I'm not obviously fucking talking to you, right? But I think anyone that, really is heart-centered and service-based can see this behavior from really far away. Like, there are simply some people that have great charisma. They're great at sales, but ultimately what they're doing is they're overcomplicating their position in order to make themselves seem more valuable, when really a better strategy would be breaking it down as simple as possible for your consumer and for your clients, so that they know that they can trust you, right? I never oversell my capabilities. If anything, I undersell my capabilities. That way I'm 100% sure that my clients are taken care of and I am genuinely doing the best for them. I'm not trying to oversell them on something way overcomplicated to like affirm my worthiness in my position. So, and this isn't just financial professionals that do this, right? This is the banking system. This is just the way that investments are set up. Things are more, taxes is a perfect example. The IRS, if they were using plain English to explain everything and they just made it as basic as possible for people to understand, people probably wouldn't be paying their taxes, right? The only reason that the majority of the population feels the fear around the IRS is because the IRS has not only, obviously been involved in shaping the public opinion of taxes, since the 1930s. That's a whole other podcast episode, so let's not get into that. But also because so many people are afraid of taxes because it's so intimidating, because the IRS is purposely using complicated language so that the average person doesn't understand. Let's be real. That's exactly what's going on. They don't want the average person to understand. Why would you go to a government-funded public school and they wouldn't explain how taxes would work, right? Just think about it. You're not learning anything about taxes, yet you're spending 12 plus years in a publicly paid for by taxes school. That doesn't make any sense. It's because the public actually can't know about the ins and outs of the IRS, because it would only affirm their obsolescence. And that's the truth. So another example of this is when crypto was really big and started becoming this really big topic that people were, putting a lot of money into. I know a lot of people that have, most of their wealth or most of their cash in crypto. And for me personally, I saw it as an investment opportunity, a short-term investment opportunity, just like I would see the stock market as a short-term investment opportunity. And I'm not someone that, again, I don't put a lot of money into the stock market either. There's a little bit out there. And when I did, I wanted to use the word bet just now, when I did bet my 401k, because that's what it is, right? It's sophisticated gambling. When I did invest my 401k into the stock market, I made 85% returns. So I know I, physically could do it. I know that like returns are possible, but it's not something that I feel personally drawn to invest a lot of money in. But the same kind of thing with crypto. People that were putting a lot of money into it, they couldn't explain it in a way that made sense to me, in a really like differentiated way from any other type of investment that I would do, right? So the way that they explained it just made it sound even more like a pyramid scheme, or even more like we're just relying on the mass adoption of this currency in order to validate, and to give it value, which is true for all currencies. That's also true for the US dollar. But it just didn't seem like a currency that I was really personally going to have a lot of faith in. But I saw it as a short-term investment opportunity. Do you see kind of like the difference for that? I could understand it in the short term of how you would be able to make some money on it relatively quickly. But something for a long term, it just simply didn't vibe with me, right? And this is where this is where the soul aligned part comes in, because you get to follow what feels right for you and what doesn't feel right for you. When you are someone that has a high net worth, or you're coming into a lot of money, or your business is really growing and now you're finding yourself with a lot more cash than you're used to, I think you'll start to realize that just having cash in the bank is also just like super idle. It can get real stale real quick in there. So you do need to be circulating the money. But then what a lot of people do is they rush into an investment or multiple investments that are overly complex, quote unquote, overly complex. And they're not really understanding where their money is going, but they just feel rushed to invest in something. And this is where you can take a step back and take as much time as you need. And again, managing this like a high net worth individual, only really paying attention to what other high net worth individuals are doing with the money, right? So who are you taking advice from? Are you taking advice from someone that, is walking their own walk? Or are you taking advice from someone that just, sits around and speculates all day, right? So if it's, to sum this up, the number one most important tip for high net worth money management is you need to be able to explain the investment, the risks involved, and the potential return in completely plain English and fully understand it. Well, you don't have to say it in English. Just say it in whatever language you want, right? But being able to explain it and actually understand it before you're putting money into it. And that will save you so much time and so many lessons just keeping that with you. If I can't explain it, I don't understand it, I'm not going to invest in it. And that goes for all types of investments, right? That goes for hiring new team members. That goes for hiring your mentorship. If the mentor is not clearly explaining what you're receiving as a result of the transaction, the energy exchange isn't clear before you're paying them money, that's a sign right there, right? You should feel crystal clear moving forward. And I'm not talking about crystal clear feeling in the terms of your mentor is pressuring you to make a decision. And if you're not making a decision quickly, you're not moving with alignment. Me personally, it takes me a very long time to make decisions, like big financial decisions. I wanted land in April of 2021, and I didn't buy land until February of 2022, right? So I wanted a truck in January. I didn't buy one until May. So it's like you don't need to be rushing into these decisions to fit someone else's timeline. You get to feel into what feels the best for you, and like fill in your own timeline of how fast or slow you are going to go. And noticing when someone is putting like this undue pressure on you to make a decision. And if you don't, you're, not confident, you're not sure of where you're going, et cetera, et cetera. All of these are like gaslighting bullshit techniques. And, people of all occupations do that. So it's definitely not just limited to financial professionals or the coaching industry, but I happen to be in both. And that is a common behavior that I see. Everything should be really clear. And if you don't understand it, the next best thing is you need to hire someone that you deeply, deeply trust that understands it. You need to have, whether that's someone else in your life, a sibling, a parent, a child, whether that's a team member that you're hiring in your business, you need to have someone in your life that you completely trust that understands it. That can be a safe sounding board for you as you're navigating these decisions. Because that's also not to say that you as an entrepreneur or you as a high net worth individual need to necessarily understand every single thing either. You don't, if you're paying someone to, take care of certain things, you really don't need to understand it. If I'm paying someone to make graphics for me, I don't really need to understand how they're doing it, right? I just see the result of it. So also not feeling like, you really need to know the ins and outs of every single thing, but you also need to understand it on a deep, deep, deep level. Even if you're not doing the work or you're not actually facilitating it, you still understand the general gist of what's going on. And if it's too complicated to explain to someone else, it's probably, either a dumb investment or or it's not going to be, something that's really successful for you. Or maybe it is just a really complicated investment. Maybe you'll make a ton of money out of it, right? I'm just going off of what I've seen. I see a lot of people just rush into things because they feel pressured to do so. And the purpose of this episode is to just let you know that as a high net worth person, you are the one that's in charge. You are the one that gets to call the shots and make the decisions. And you don't have to be ready for anything that you're not ready for. So if you enjoyed this episode, please screenshot and share on Instagram. My username is @luxombabe, and I would love to hear your feedback. I would just, love to hear what you thought of today's episode. Please feel free to leave me a review. I would really appreciate it. And then I also wanted to tell you about the Money Channel, which is my text community. That is where all the witchy psychic shit goes down, and I'm just loving creating content for the subscribers of that community. There's a new video training every Sunday. So if you want to work with me with money in a deeper capacity, but you want to get a little more witchy and psychic with it, the Money Channel is definitely your place to go. So I'll leave the links below if you want to join. You can cancel at any time. My Gemini ass would not make you commit to anything for very long. So cancel anytime. Take this walk with me for however long that is. And I look forward to seeing you on our next community call in the Money Channel. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.